Every spring for the past 8 years, I've come to the Grand Canyon to run. It's become kind of a ritual, not just for me, but for thousands of people who return here year after year. There's something about this place that stirs something deeper than just appreciation for its beauty and unique landscape. Lots of places are beautiful, but this place feels different, sacred. This year, just a few weeks after finishing cancer treatment, I'm back, not just to run, but to try to understand what is it about the Grand Canyon that keeps pulling us back. I'm Sarah. I live in the mountains, and I'm just trying to be happier, healthier, stronger every day. Oh, South Kaibab is so spectacular. It was the first trail that was built by the national park to serve as a public trail. From the South Rim to the Colorado River, it is about 7 miles one way and almost 5,000 feet of elevation loss. You start on the rim just near Yagi Point, and you kind of drop down and traverse on the side for a little bit until you come out on the nose of this ridge, which is what makes the trail so spectacular. Ooh-ah Point is like when you first come out onto the ridge and you can really see the sweeping views of the canyon for the first time. It is a steep and difficult trail, made even more difficult by years of use with the mule trains that have eroded the trail quite a bit. Construction started in 1924 and it only took 7 months, I think, to build, which is incredible considering how much they needed to blast using dynamite. At the time that it was built, the Grand Canyon was a new national park. It was our 15th national park, and it was established in 1919. And Grandview and Hermit's Rest and Bright Angel all existed in the park, but they were privately owned. They were built by miners and prospectors, but eventually taken over as toll trails for tourism. One of the priorities for the national parks back in the day was to make sure that the parks were accessible to be explored. So they built the Kaibab Trail with the intention of building it all the way across the canyon, which they did, so that the public could get all the way into the canyon and all the way across it. It is definitely wildly popular, or I should say the first half mile to 2 miles are wildly popular. Bright Angel's like that too. I think South Kaibab is a lot more worth braving the crowds for. Personally, if you go a couple of miles on any of the trails in the Grand Canyon, you will quickly run out of crowds. It's only in the beginning that you see a lot of people. There's also no water access on South Kaibab like there is on Bright Angel. So until you get to the bottom, you're on your own. There are bathrooms though. The first time I set foot on the South Kaibab Trail, it was in 2017 for my first rim to rim to rim. I remember it feeling completely surreal and spectacular, the way the trail just drops off the edge of the world, winding down through endless layers of colors and time. It was breathtaking and beautiful and so fun. There was so much joy and excitement wrapped up in that first experience for me. I remember seeing the Colorado River for the first time and it just blew my mind. I remember crying when I crossed the Black Bridge at the bottom. And it makes me wonder how much our emotions imprint on a place, how the feelings we carry on a trail and the adventure we have on it become part of how we see it. The canyon hasn't changed itself, right? But I do. And now, each time I come back, I feel all of those earlier versions of myself echoing through it, layered into the rock and stitched into the miles. Just below Skeleton Point, there is a sign to mark halfway, and I love getting here because by now you've really run out of the crowds, and it's not like you're exactly alone in the canyon, but the people you're going to come across now are backpackers and serious runners and people who are just really excited to be here, and it's less touristy feeling. And you also environmentally are just more in the canyon and you really start to feel that here, like the full inner canyon experience. A mountain lifts you up and exposes you to the sky, but a canyon holds you. Since then, I've come back every year at least once. Different seasons of my life, different headspaces, different goals, different versions of me, but it's always the same canyon. And over time, all those memories have started to overlap and intertwine. The place itself hasn't changed that much, but what I bring each year has, and now when I run here, I feel all of those pasts echoing around me. It's like the canyon holds all of those layers of memory and meaning, of excitement and joy and surprise and fear and struggle and pain, just like it holds its ancient rock. And maybe that's a part of the magic, what keeps people coming back. It's not just the views or the challenge or the grandeur, it's that this place meets you exactly where you are and somehow reflects it back at you. Every descent, every mile, every return, every burning thigh, every blister, every toenail loss, the canyon becomes a mirror and maybe even a kind of home. This is the same stretch of the trail, but that's me from last year. Just working on my fitness, getting ready for my marathon before I knew. So the only rattlesnake I've ever seen on South Kaibab was in here. There's actually a special type of rattlesnake that lives in the Grand Canyon called the Grand Canyon pink rattlesnake, and they are pink. I've never actually seen one, I've only seen the regular rattlesnakes, but it is neat that there's a couple of species of animals that only live in the Grand Canyon. So you might have noticed already that as we've gone lower, the rocks have gotten darker, they're almost black. This is the Vishnu basement layer. It's primarily schist and granite, and it is some of the oldest exposed rock in the world. It's 1.7 billion years old. When I first learned this a few years ago at the Yavapai Geology Museum, I thought that it fits because I've always felt like the bottom of the Grand Canyon is like kind of otherworldly calm, and you wonder if you're just imagining that, the serenity. But then I heard this about the rock, and it's common knowledge in geology, I guess, that the younger mountain ranges, like the Tetons, are more tumultuous and active, and the older mountain ranges, like the Rockies, are more steady and calm. So this is one of my theories about what keeps us coming back to the Grand Canyon and what feels so special about it is this. The ancient rock at the bottom of the canyon feels like the canyon's heartbeat, slow, steady, and weathered and impossibly old, and being near it, something in you settles too. This is a terrible video, but I left it in case people wanted to see what the water looks like at the bottom of the canyon. This is Boaters Beach. It's the closest water to the bottom of South Kaibab. There's also water at the Silver Bridge and at Phantom Ranch. You know what they say, what goes down to the Colorado River has to painstakingly climb back out on South Kaibab. So I come into the Grand Canyon in the spring to train for mountain running because the mountains are still covered in snow. The Grand Canyon is just like an inverted mountain. And actually, Kaibab means mountain lying down. Running in canyons is such an interesting mind game because you do the descent first, and descents aren't easy. They're high impact. They still take a lot of work, a lot of stability to hold your body up. So they're taking their toll, and it's easy to underestimate the descent. And the bottom of the canyon is 30 degrees hotter generally than the rim. So by the time you're climbing back up, you are already somewhat tired and quite hot, and the impact is built up in your leg. And now you're doing a lot of work, 5,000 feet of work. The climb is where everything starts to hit. It's long, it's steep, it's so exposed. And there's no additional water, so you've just filled your water and that's all you get. But there's something really honest about that struggle. The canyon doesn't let you out easily. You have to earn every step all the way back up to the rim through all those layers that you just ran down. And just like in anything, the struggle makes the whole thing feel more meaningful and more special. There is no feeling quite like knowing you're almost back up to the rim of the Grand Canyon. When you're climbing a mountain, the summit is only the halfway point. You reach the top, but you still have to get yourself back down. But here, the climb is the finale. And when you reach the rim, that's when it's over. And as you make your way up, you pass through all the layers, not just of rock and color, but of feeling and time and emotions and energy. The soft golden hues of the Tonto feel different than the deep red walls of the Supai layer, and by the time you're climbing through the Kaibab limestone near the top, it's like your emotions have been stacked and stripped down, just like the rock in the canyon itself. Every step upward is a journey through memory and effort and joy and pain, and when you finally reach the rim, it's not just the end of a climb, it's the culmination of something deeper. No matter how far you just went, the canyon gives you that. The descent, the reflection, the slow and steady rise, and then the finish. So it snowed last night and it's still snowing. And then the next day, you just go to a different spot on the rim and you start the whole thing over. This is the Hermit Trail, a rugged, quieter path with a wild past. It started at Hermit's Rest, which you can get to via a very scenic bus ride. There's 3 things I really like about this trail. You get an entirely different view of the canyon. You see more lizards than people, and I always count. And it has kind of a zany backstory. The trail starts on the rim at Hermit's Rest, far west from the other trails. It drops steadily into a side canyon through lighter colored upper rock layers. It winds its way down into the Supai Formation, the vivid red-orange zone that's super slippery when it's wet like today, then passes through the lush drainage of Hermit Basin and eventually levels out into a long and zigzagging traverse of the Tonto platform. If you keep going, the trail follows Hermit Creek all the way down to Hermit Rapids on the Colorado River. Along the way, you'll pass remnants of the old hermit camp. It It is rocky and less maintained than the corridor trails, but that's its charm. Bigger solitude and more adventure. I absolutely love this section because I feel like you just don't expect to see flowering trees in the Grand Canyon, but there's actually just all kinds of terrain and flora and fauna here. The Hermit's Rest area has underground springs, so you actually see flora beside the trail. A really neat diversity of plants and wildlife. Like so many trails, the original path was created by the Havasupai people long before tourists ever dreamed of setting foot in the canyon. The area was also prospected most famously by Louis Boucher, a hermit who was also known for being kind to tourists and visitors, and who the trail would eventually be named after. So the really crazy part begins in the early 1900s when things got competitive. Let's set the stage. Ralph Cameron has a tight grip on the Bright Angel Trail and was charging people a large toll to hike down. It was $1 per person at the time. Enter the Santa Fe Railway, who basically said, fine, we'll build our own trail and it'll have blackjack and 10 cabins. And thus, the Hermit Trail was born. It was the first trail in the canyon that was purpose-built for tourists, sustainably built with retaining walls made of local rock to blend into the landscape. And it would become a blueprint for other trails built in national parks at the time. In 1912, the same year as the Titanic, the railroad and the Fred Harvey Company went all in, spending a fortune at the time, $100,000, which with inflation is about $3.2 million today, to make the Hermit Trail the luxury descent into the canyon. They built Hermit Camp down near the creek, a legit backcountry resort with electricity, hot meals, fancy tents, and even telephone service. Of course, all of that is no longer there. When you hike to the bottom of the Hermit Trail, you're just on your own. There's not even cell service. All that history clings to the trail. When you hike or run it, you feel it. The echoes of people who ran it before, who built it, the ones who came here searching for solitude or service or just something sublime. Maybe that's part of what keeps pulling us back to the Grand Canyon. It's not just the views, it's all of the stories carved into every step. So I decided to turn around a little bit early. I was really excited I got to go to the river and back yesterday on Kaibab, but I definitely don't have the energy to do that again today. Here is a video from last year, a little bit deeper into the canyon. That beige colored fin that's sort of framed here is the next section. You'll traverse that and drop down to the Colorado River. Look at the sun. This is your reminder to bring sunglasses even when it is snowing. So the first time I did this trail was in spring of 2019. I went all the way to the river, which is almost a 20-mile round trip. I was living in a camper at the time and traveling full-time, and I started out spring training that year in the Sedona area. Then when I moved up to Flagstaff, I was almost immediately broken into. They tore the place apart looking for cash, I assume, and ultimately only took a very old mountaineering axe that I bought secondhand for $15 and my stun gun, but it freaked me out so much that I just hightailed it up to the Grand Canyon, and I stayed in that area for 3 months because I felt safe there. And that was long enough that I explored all the trails and loops, and when I was down lower on the shelf between Hermit Creek and where it enters the Colorado River at Hermit Rapids, I was running fast downhill, and I accidentally ran over a rattlesnake that was sleeping in the middle of the trail, nestled in the rocks. And before I even realized it was there, it woke up and snapped, and I could see and feel it happening in slow motion almost. I could hear it and feel it underneath me, like rising up. But I was already in the air, I was moving fast. Ultimately, it was too late for it to actually get me, and I was just already past it. That was one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me. I'm comfortable with mountain animals, and spiders and snakes just really freak me out. I was so scared to come back up the trail, and I was tempted to try to go off trail to circumvent it, but that could potentially be even worse and scarier. So I went back up the trail, and of course I had left the area, so it was a non-issue, but it's just kind of crazy. You're not going to see a rattlesnake in the middle of the trail on Kaibab because it's too crowded with people. And like I said before, the only rattlesnake I've ever seen on Kaibab was nestled into the wall, that rock section. But the Hermit Trail is uncrowded enough that you have to keep an eye out because maybe there's a rattlesnake sleeping in the middle of the trail. I love this part. You never saw me from coming back to this trail. I love this trail, but I definitely have always been more cautious ever since. Look at the trail on the other side. This is the switchbacks we're looking at from the other side. So cool. Staircase is savage. There's something about this top section, the switchbacks between the rim and the side canyon, that always plays tricks on my sense of time and distance and space. On the way down, the switchbacks go by in a blur, fast and smooth, despite being pretty technical, but climbing back up, it's like time and miles just stretch out. See, we're going to the top of that rim. And the rim, it's always visible, and it just never seems to get any closer. This illusion is familiar on any long climb where the descent flies and the ascent drags, but on this trail it feels more exaggerated. I don't know if it's the exposure or that you can see the rim the whole time, or the way you can see the switchbacks ahead of you. And the rim is just right there, taunting you and looking impossibly far off, until suddenly you're just back at the top. Hermit Trail was built to welcome people into the depths of the canyon and to make the wild feel just a little more accessible. And more than a century later, it's still doing that. We're high enough, we've got to view the rest of the canyon now. Today I saw 3 people and 6 lizards. The quiet solitude, the sweeping views, and the slow, aching climb back to the rim. Just turn this corner and you can't see the canyon anymore. That's how you know you're almost done. It's always given me what I was looking for and sometimes what I didn't know I needed. There's the end. Well, it snowed again. When I read on the National Park's website that the Grandview Trail is a rocky, exposed, strenuous trail requiring experience and caution, I knew I had to go. It is steeper and more exposed than South Kaibab. It is wilder than Hermit's Rest. The Grandview Trail is a strenuous experience, no doubt. It definitely feels hard and extreme, and I absolutely love that about it. This used to be another trail where you could count on not seeing anybody. It's gotten a lot more popular in recent years, but they still stick to the first half mile or so. Most people don't tolerate the exposure super well and they go back up. Probably needless to say, but I did not see anybody today in the conditions that it's in because the trail is already crazy enough and it is icier than it looks and hard to tell where you're stepping with the snow. So it's somewhat unappealing conditions, but I felt great about it. I just had to be careful. Wow. These big rocks there. Ooh. It's so crazy to think about. Here. Ooh, goodness. So the Grandview Trail is the second oldest constructed trail in the Grand Canyon, built in 1893 by a miner named Pete Berry to access his copper mine at Horseshoe Mesa. It soon became one of the canyon's first tourist paths. You know, before the railroad came in 1901, Grand Canyon visitors used to arrive by wagon at Grandview. It was the railroad that actually built Grand Canyon Village further west later on. The same miner, Pete, built the canyon's first hotel at Grandview as well. Some parts of the trail are made of stacked logs cantilevered into the cliffs, which honestly seems like a marvel of engineering and sheer nerve in the 1890s. But it's crazier to me that some of these have been repaired by the Park Service, but a lot of it is still the original cribbing and riprap from 1893. Unlike the smoother and more stock-friendly trails built after the railroad came, Grandview was steep and rugged, and it still is. I just love how old this trail feels, and the character of it to me is raw ambition and nerve and guts, you know, and that's always how I feel when I run on it. One thing there's never any shortage of here is awe. And awe isn't just a feeling, it's actually a full body experience. Studies have shown that moments of awe can actually calm your nervous system by toning your vagal nerve, lower inflammation, and boost your immune function. Awe helps us feel connected to something larger than ourselves. It shifts our focus away from ourselves and toward a sense of belonging in the world. The incredible views you see here, the sunrises and sunsets on the rim or deep in the canyon, are actually physically improving your life. So we're going to descend over here and then cross under that ridge. You can actually see the trail down there. And the trail's going to weave in and out of the side of that little ridge mesa thing. And then ultimately descend all the way down into the canyon. But there's that mesa there, Horseshoe Mesa. There's a really cool loop around that. I'm not going to do it today, but I've done it before. That's a great run. This is where we cross over onto that fin. Kind of pretty. You can see the side canyon through here. Probably gonna turn around soon. I'm tired, but it's like not even just that. I'm so sore. I think the fatigue has let up a lot, and it let me do a couple of really big days, and my legs are not used to being used by that like that. My toenails aren't used to it. I was massaging my legs last night, and they're so sore, it's like tender to even touch them in places. So they'll be okay. More time on my feet today is like not gonna
halfway.
happen.
Grandview DH scramble. Behind by 24 minutes, 40 seconds.
Savage. Here's another clip from last year so you can see what it looks like a little bit further out on the fin than I'm going today. Okay, so I decided to turn around. My toenails just can't take it anymore. And my calves too. Especially on this like weird cobble stuff. It's like kind of surreal, this tree area, how it's bent over the trail. Like, it almost looks like we're at home in the mountains, and then you get a break in the trees and you're like, oh, we're totally still in the Grand Canyon. Winter Wonderland. So what is it that keeps us coming back to the Grand Canyon? I mean, it's obviously not just the views or that it's good terrain for spring mountain training, but those things are great, and we know that awe alone is enough to improve your physical well-being. Maybe it's the way your own experiences start to layer into the landscape, how the trail you first ran when you were scared or excited or changed somehow holds that energy, like South Kaibab for me. Or maybe it's the character of the canyon itself. The ancient rocks, 2 billion years old almost in some places, they've seen so much. There's a groundedness to that, a kind of quiet. It's like being around someone who's been through everything and just doesn't get rattled anymore. And then there's the river. People say it can wash something out of you, that there's a kind of renewal in reaching it. Maybe that's just a metaphor, or maybe it's more. And every trail has its own story. Hermit feels welcoming, solitary, kind. It was built to show people the canyon on their terms in comfort with hospitality. Grandview, that one has guts. It was carved for copper, but it kept pulling people back for other reasons. Adventure, perspective, maybe even pride. And Kaibab is showy, but it also has a for the people vibe because it wasn't built for profit. You can feel those different energies in the stone, in the trail design, even in how your body moves through the terrain. So what is a place, really? Is it just rocks and air and weather? Or is it also memory, emotion, energy, a living, breathing story that changes every time someone moves through it? I don't know. I don't know if I have too many answers or none at all. It's magic or mystery, and I don't know, I just love it here. Thanks so much for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.